Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good. Hey, everybody, my name is Geoff Livingston. I am the CEO of Generative Buzz. I'm here with Michael Hoffman, President of GovCIO. How are you,
Yes.
my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having us here at the GovAI Summit. We're really excited to be here with GovCIO Media and Research. For those that do not know GovCIO Media and Research, we are a media company really focused on covering the federal agencies. Pretty much anywhere that technology and government intersect, that's where we want to be. So no better place than a spot like GovAI Summit to hear the different speakers that they have here and to be a part of it.
Well, it's really good to see you. I know you've been a core part of the marketplace for quite a while now, and it makes sense to me that you would be involved with AI given everything you've done. AI has been a bit of a zeitgeist this year, ever since really ChatGPT launched in November of last year, but really kind of continued to accelerate over the past 12 months. How do you really see AI fitting in with the U.S. government? What's its potential? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. That generative AI, which is ChatGPT, has just really taken the government, especially by storm. There's just so many different opportunities that a lot of our speakers today have really covered, to include DHS and whatnot. But there's just a wide range of opportunities within the AI space, whether it be the cancer moonshot and the different computing power that AI presents, to potentially take on some of those diseases that are just so debilitating to so many families out there. But then also on the lower end, just making government more efficient. You think about the chat bots that are out there. You think about filling out your taxes. I mean, I'll just say, for instance, IRS is really taking on some really interesting approaches to AI and just making that experience a lot easier.
Boy, I really think that could be a groundbreaker for the IRS, because we all know that they do get burdened down pretty heavily at times. Government's not private sector, and we all know that. And there are obviously extra barriers in play. What are some of the roadblocks you really see kind of stopping government, or maybe extra hurdles that they have to overcome, if you would?
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges that the government has right now are their legacy systems that they've really been working on. I mean, if you take a look at some of the different technologies that the different government agencies are utilizing right now, you'd be shocked. So a big part of that, too, is also the data that these different artificial intelligence systems are working on right now. So a lot of people have said the common phrase is garbage in, garbage out. Not to say that the government agencies are providing garbage necessarily, but they'll be the first ones to say that they really need to work on their data hygiene in order for these artificial intelligence systems to really meet the potential that they're hoping to find.
Do you see data governance as kind of like that first step to get ready for AI then?
Yeah, absolutely. We were actually just out in Hawaii for the Indo-PACOM TechNet conference, and that was a really big subject out there, because they have the big issue of they're working on so many systems. You have so many different, in this situation it was the military, where they're working on so many different operating systems. They don't have time to tag the data that exists out there. And the different leadership understand that now, and they know that they need to also just automate that process, or there's going to really be no hope. Because it takes so much time, they don't have the manpower to do that. So, for instance, when you're taking in video or other different intelligence opportunities, you don't have time to tag all that, the meta tags that are necessary for the different AI systems. It just doesn't exist the time doesn't exist out there. So they really need to get that right first in order to really meet the potential that exists out there.
And one more question on data before we move on. Obviously, the civilian agencies have great data repositories that are used by the private sector frequently to populate their own data. So do you see value being assigned to these various data repositories? Do you see the government perhaps even packaging it and using these data sets, if you would? I keep thinking data lakes, I don't know why. But if they use their data kind of to encourage private sector to take on some of the policy aspects of AI. How do you see government using its data to inform the public moving forward with AI?
Yeah, it's a great point. The issue here really is that government has some of the richest data sets in the world, especially the U.S. government. They're really taking on some really interesting programs, such as the Million Veterans Program, where we're taking all the different, they're having these veterans say, hey, you can have full access to my medical records in the interest of taking on some of those, tackling those diseases that we were talking about. HHS is also taking on a similar type of program there. So the opportunities are endless there, and that's why I think there's a lot of talk right now too around some of the ethics around that. So in our most recent Health IT Summit, we had a couple leaders from HHS, the White House, and so forth talk about some of the questions that they're taking on there, like who is going to give access to some of that data. I mean, that's something that a lot of the different leaders within industry in government are trying to think about. For instance, Sam Altman from OpenAI has talked a lot about saying, hey, like, I really think that if it's on the internet, our company should have the opportunity to be able to tackle this in the same way that a human has free access to the internet and can get smarter, right? But there are also a lot of questions on saying, when it comes to medical records, when it comes to, all right, if I'm approving that you can use these data sets, there's a lot of other data sets that are connected to those, and you're not necessarily approving those. So again, it comes down to the data. This is something that the government is tackling consistently in the security questions that exist out there.
So besides data, what other steps is the government taking to prepare for the AI movement that's occurring?
Yeah. So recently, the White House just came out with its recent AI executive order, and a big part of that is really taking a look at the policy measures. They realize that the wave of AI systems is coming. The investment that's being made by Silicon Valley and the different venture capital firms out there is just stunning, quite frankly. So the amount of companies and the amount of products that are going to be coming forward, they realize it's coming. So there needs to be a certain level of governance that exists out there. So part of the most recent executive order, which I'll give a shout out to my team, they had a great podcast tackling this. Ross, I see right over here, managing editor, leading that discussion. We're talking about some of the different orders that came through that. So for instance, the Defense Department has, at the onset of that executive order, had 180 days to put through a plan to test these different operations and explain, how, to their different subsets of the different defense agencies, how do we want to take on these AI systems? What are some of the different ethical issues that we see coming forward, and how are we going to go forward with that?
Excellent. So how do you see industry working with government and vice versa as we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, just like I mentioned, there's just an incredible amount of investment that's going on out there. So the different government agencies are really taking advantage of the different the different organizations that they've already stood up to take on emerging technologies. So, for instance, you have the Defense Innovation Unit, you have ARPA-H, which is a really cool program that HHS has just recently launched. It's their version of DARPA. Really cool program right there. And then you also have stuff like the Air Force Research Laboratory. They're the ones that they've asked to go out there, think about new ways to test these different AI systems, and also take a look at how they acquire some of these different systems. I mean, the government has a real challenge of getting through the multitudes of red tape to bring on new programs and new products, and sometimes it's been a limiting factor within these emerging technology spaces. So being able to test and think through different opportunities to take that on is just extremely important for the government to keep pace.
Makes sense. Now, of course, you and your own entity, GovCIO Media and Research, do a lot of work to help prepare government and industry. Tell me about some of the initiatives you have coming up.
Yeah, we're just really excited about the different topics that exist out there. I know our editor-in-chief, Amy Kluber, who's with us here today, she's constantly thinking through an editorial plan with our team of reporters and editors to think through, okay, how can we take on, at the end of the day, our mission is really about taking on and educating government leadership, okay, especially in the IT space. So this is an area where they want to get smart at all times on this space.
Sure.
So we have a quite a bit of plan coming up in the upcoming calendar year. We have our Defense IT Summit, where, like I said, we're going to have the Air Force Research Lab CIO. She's going to take part in that on February 9th. So please look out for that. We also have our Cybersecurity Summit, our Cyberscape Summit in March, on March 7th. So please take a look at that as well. We're just going to have a lot of different topics. Our podcasts are really going to tackle this on a daily basis, and the different articles that Amy and her team are putting together. We love being at places like the GovAI Summit to learn from all the folks here, and just constantly be taking on our different coverage.
Cool. So one last question before we split, and you could totally putt on this because I'm putting you on the spot. But if you could pull out your crystal ball, what's your big AI prediction for 2024?
My big AI prediction for 2024. Wow, that is a tough one. I would say if I'm going to stay within the government space, we had the White House executive order in 2023. We're going to have another one in 2024, and we might have two in 2024. Because this is moving so quickly, there are demands within the White House and within the government for some sort of direction in this space. Like, where are the boundaries going to be? We saw with all the commentary with OpenAI, there is a need for this right now. I think there is, not only a need, but in some ways, there's that idea out there that there's some fear out there of what AI can take on. And with the government, I think it's really important that they provide some of the roadblocks, or not some of the roads, but some, just some direction of where that these different industry folks can go with it. So I think we just had an executive order. I think we'll have two more in 2024. So how's that for a prediction?
That's a big one. That's a big one. All right. Thank you very much for joining me today, and we'll let you get some lunch now.
All right. Thanks so much, Geoff, and thanks to everybody for joining us.
Cheers.